The year was 1066. England had become one kingdom, but its crown was no longer secure. When King Edward died without an heir, three powerful leaders claimed the same throne. The English nobles chose Harold Godwinson as king. But his coronation would not bring peace, would trigger one of the most famous invasions in history. From the north came Harald Hardrada of Norway. From the south, Duke William of Normandy prepared his fleet. England now faced two invasions at once. Harold would first march north, then turn his exhausted army south. Within weeks, England's fate would be decided on the blood-soaked fields of battle. September 1066, King Harald Hardrada landed on England's shores with thousands of warriors. The Vikings had begun their final great attempt to claim the English crown. At the Battle of Fulford, the Vikings defeated the English forces. The road to York lay open, and England faced a grave danger. Harold Godwinson wasted no time. He marched his army hundreds of miles north in just days. The rapid advance caught the Vikings completely by surprise. On September 25, 1066, Harold Hardrada was killed at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. The Viking army collapsed. Historians often regard this battle as the end of the Viking Age. While Harold celebrated victory in the north, one of the greatest invasions in English history was about to begin. On September 28, 1066, the Norman fleet reached England. Thousands of soldiers and hundreds of war horses came ashore, while Harold's army was still racing back from the north. William did not rush. Near Hastings, he built defensive positions and fortifications, waiting patiently for Harold to attack. Every move was carefully calculated. Harold finally reached the south with his exhausted army. Ahead stood the Normans. The battle to come would decide not only a crown, but the future of England itself. On the morning of October 14th, 1066, Harold's army formed its shield wall atop Senlac Hill. Below them, William's disciplined Norman army prepared to attack. For hours, Norman cavalry and archers launched relentless attacks. Yet, the Anglo-Saxon shield wall held firm against every assault. During the battle, rumors spread that William had been killed. He removed his helmet to reveal himself alive, rallying his army for one final assault. By the end of the day, Harold was dead. The Anglo-Saxon army collapsed. As the Battle of Hastings ended, a new era in English history had begun. After the victory at Hastings, nothing stood in William's way. London could no longer resist. England was forced to accept a new ruler. On Christmas Day, 1066, William was crowned King of England at Westminster Abbey. The Norman dynasty had officially begun. William did more than claim the crown. He built massive stone castles across England, symbols of Norman power and a new political order. 1066 was more than a conquest. England's language, government, nobility, and culture began to change forever. The nation had entered a completely new era. The conquest was complete, but William's next challenge was not war, it was ruling an entire kingdom. To do that, he ordered something never attempted before. Royal officials traveled from village to village, recording lands, farms, livestock, and people. Never before had England been surveyed in such extraordinary detail. completed in 1086. The Domesday Book became one of the most remarkable records of the Middle Ages, documenting everything from land ownership to taxation. William did more than conquer England. He built a powerful system of government that laid the foundation for one of medieval Europe's strongest kingdoms. In 1087, William the Conqueror died, left behind a powerful kingdom, but once again, the question of succession divided the Norman dynasty. In 1120, Prince William Adelin sailed home aboard the magnificent white ship. No one knew the voyage would become one of England's greatest disasters. Near midnight, the ship struck hidden rocks. Within minutes, it sank. Prince William, Adelin, and hundreds of others drowned in the freezing sea. The prince's death plunged England into uncertainty. The kingdom no longer had a clear heir. Soon the nation would descend into years of brutal civil war. After Henry I died, no agreement could be reached over the succession. Supporters of Empress Matilda and King Stephen plunged England into years of civil war. Castles were besieged, towns were plundered, and royal authority collapsed. Historians remember this period by one name: the Anarchy. After years of conflict, a new figure emerged: Henry Plantagenet. The young prince would become the man who reunited England. In 1154, Henry II became king. The Plantagenet dynasty had begun. A new era of stronger government, legal reform, and royal power was about to reshape England. Henry II and Thomas Becket were once close friends. The king believed that by making him Archbishop of Canterbury, he could bring the church under royal control. But Becket changed. He chose to defend the church instead of the crown. The friendship soon became one of England's greatest political crises. In 1170, 4 Norman knights entered Canterbury Cathedral. Thomas Becket was murdered before the altar. The killing shocked all of Europe. Becket's death outraged the kingdom. Under immense pressure, Henry II publicly performed penance. Though still king, he could never fully bend the church to his will. In 1189, Henry II died and his son Richard became king. His courage and military skill would earn him the name Richard the Lionheart. Soon after becoming king, Richard joined the Third Crusade. The King of England now commanded one of Europe's greatest armies. Richard fought Saladin to reclaim Jerusalem. Although the two legendary leaders respected one another, neither achieved a decisive victory. Richard spent much of his life at war. In 1199, he died from an arrow wound. He left behind a legendary reputation, but England was about to enter a far more difficult era under its next king. The Magna Carta had been sealed, but peace did not last. When King John rejected the agreement, England descended into civil war once again. The rebel barons invited Prince Louis of France to claim the English throne. For the first time, a foreign prince invaded England to become its king. In 1216, King John died. England lost its king in the middle of a civil war. The crown now passed to his 9-year-old son, Henry. Crowned as a child, Henry III became England's new hope. But the kingdom was still at war, and the real struggle had only just begun. After years of conquest, civil war, and succession struggles, England slowly began to recover. But this was no longer the England of the Anglo-Saxons. It had become a Norman kingdom. The Norman Conquest, the Domesday Book, and a Magna Carta reshaped not only England, but the political future of Europe itself. Yet England's greatest rise had not even begun. The Plantagenet kings would build one of Europe's most powerful dynasties and lead the continent into decades of war. In the next chapter, we will follow Edward I, William Wallace, the wars of Scottish independence, and the 100 Years' War as England rises to become one of Europe's greatest powers. To understand the future, we must first understand the past. Subscribe and continue exploring world history in chronological order.